welcome to Indus News. Live from Islamabad, I'm Naila Shujra, and these are the headlines. Pakistan's ruling party is leading in the Azad Jammu and Kashmir parliamentary elections. A focal person for the local election commission said the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf is ahead with 24 seats out of the 45. Raja Azhar Iqbal said the body will make a formal announcement today. Israeli fighter jets have launched air raids on the Gaza Strip, violating the May ceasefire with Hamas yet again. In a tweet, the Israeli military said that it struck a weapons manufacturing site that allegedly belonged to the group. China's Vice Foreign Minister Xi Feng says the United States is responsible for the stalemate in bilateral ties. In talks with the U.S. Deputy Secretary of State Wendy Sherman in Tianjin, Xi said Washington portrays Beijing as an imaginary enemy to reignite a national sense of purpose. Brazil has registered 476 new coronavirus deaths and over 18,000 cases overnight. In Pakistan, the virus has claimed 32 more lives and over 3,700 infections in the past 24 hours. Globally, there are 4.1 million fatalities and more than 194 million cases so far. For more news and details, stay tuned. We'll be back after a short break. Welcome back. Pakistan's ruling party is leading in the Azad Jammu and Kashmir parliamentary elections. More than 700 candidates from 3 major political parties and 2 local groups are running for 45 seats. A focal person for the local election commission said the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf is ahead with 24 seats out of 45. Raja Azhar Iqbal said the Pakistan People's Party has 6 seats and the Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz has 2. Meanwhile, 2 seats seem to be going to the local groups. Iqbal said the body will make a formal announcement today. Israeli fighter jets have launched air raids on the Gaza Strip, violating the May ceasefire with Hamas yet again. In a tweet, the Israeli military said that it struck a weapons manufacturing site that allegedly belonged to the group. It claimed that the attack was in response to incendiary balloons launched from the Strip. The Israeli army said the site was near civilian sites in Gaza, including a school. But Palestinian media says Israeli warplanes struck agricultural land and 2 other areas in the southern Khan Yunis city. Meanwhile, the Russian Defense Ministry says the Syrian military intercepted another Israeli airstrike in the capital, Damascus. This is the 3rd such incident in a week. China's Vice Foreign Minister Xi Feng says the United States is responsible for the stalemate in bilateral ties. He made the remarks during a meeting with his U.S. Deputy Secretary of State Wendy Sherman in Tianjin. Xi said Washington portrays Beijing as an imaginary enemy to reignite a national sense of purpose. He said the United States aims to divert the attention from its domestic public discontent by demonizing China. The Vice Foreign Minister accused the United States of launching a campaign aimed at containing China. He urged Washington to change its highly misguided mindset and dangerous policy. The U.S. Deputy State Secretary is also expected to meet the Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi today. Brazil has registered 476 new coronavirus deaths and over 18,000 cases overnight. Globally, there are 4.1 million fatalities and more than 194 million cases so far. More in this report. Even the most successful vaccination drives are turning out to be futile due to a surge in coronavirus cases driven by the Delta variant. China, where the virus originated, reported its highest new daily cases since the end of January. In the United States, top infectious disease expert Dr. Anthony Fauci says the country is in an unnecessary predicament of soaring cases. He said the fresh surge is fueled by unvaccinated Americans and the Delta strain. While in Australia, New South Wales has logged its 2nd highest daily surge of the year.
Some settings might change. We might need to go harder in some areas and release some settings in others. So please know that our government is always looking at the best options we have available. And the options are, as I say, our mission is to allow our citizens to live as safely and as freely as possible. And that's always been our position during the pandemic.
In Europe, political scandals over government handling of the pandemic continue to unfold. UK Health Secretary Sajid Javid has apologized after suggesting people shouldn't cower from COVID-19. UK authorities have warned that young people are getting seriously ill from the virus in the latest wave. Amid violent protests and political tensions in France, the parliament has approved another law requiring vaccination passes for domestic travel. President Emmanuel Macron urged people to get vaccinated and shunned the notion that new rules are an attack on personal freedoms.
Le vaccin est entre nos mains. Et donc c'est ça.
What is your freedom worth if you say to me, I don't want to be vaccinated, but if tomorrow you infect your father, your mother, or myself? I am a victim of your freedom when you had the possibility to have something to protect yourself and me.
In Iran, even with a stringent lockdown, the latest wave driven by the Delta variant is peaking. Meanwhile, Indonesia's government has eased restrictions despite warnings that are loosening the curbs, which could spark another wave. In Pakistan, the coronavirus positivity rate has jumped to 7.51% as the fourth wave of the pandemic gains momentum. The health ministry says more than 3,700 people tested positive for the virus in the past 24 hours. Officials also recorded 32 deaths overnight, pushing the toll to 23,048. The country has logged over 1,008,000 cases since the pandemic began. There are more than 57,000 active cases and over 2,600 of them are in critical condition. The United Nations says civilian casualties in Afghanistan have risen by 47% in the first half of 2021. In a report, UNAMA reported more than 5,100 civilian deaths as fighting rages between the Taliban and the Afghan forces. It said nearly 2,400 Afghan civilians have been killed or injured in May and June, the highest two-month figure since 2009. Following the report, UN envoy Deborah Lyons urged the warring parties to step up efforts for a peace settlement. Earlier, a top U.S. general in Afghanistan said Washington will continue airstrikes to support government forces. At a press conference in Kabul, General Kenneth McKenzie warned the Taliban against continuing the attacks. It comes as more than 22,000 Afghan families have fled amid fighting in the former Taliban bastion of Kandahar. Meanwhile, a delegation led by Mullah Abdul Haq al-Bahadik met European envoy Thomas Nicholson. In a tweet, a Taliban spokesperson said the two sides discussed the peace process and the right situation. Tunisia's president has sacked the prime minister and suspended parliament over the COVID-19 response. In a televised speech, Kais Saied said that he will assume executive authority with the help of a new PM. President Saied also joined a crowd in central Tunis as thousands took to the streets to celebrate the ouster. Parliament Speaker Rashid Ghannouchi said the head of Ennahda decreed the move as a coup and an assault on democracy. Ghannouchi arrived at the parliament to call a session in defiance of Saied, but the army stationed outside the building stopped the 80-year-old former political exile from entering. Meanwhile, dozens of Ennahda party supporters face off against Saied supporters near the parliament. In India, 9 people have died while 2 others are injured after their vehicle was hit by a landslide in the state of Himachal Pradesh. Authorities said the vehicle was carrying 11 people. This has raised the death toll from floods and landslides triggered by the heavy rains to 156. Earlier, officials said 9 people died in southwest Karnataka, while 138 in Maharashtra state. Talking to the media, Karnataka officials said at least 3 others are missing in the flood-affected regions. Authorities have issued a red alert in 7 districts of the state, predicting 3 more days of rainfall. Heavy downpours and thunderstorms have caused severe flash floods across London. Hospitals have asked patients to stay away after their emergency departments were hit, causing operational issues. Torrential rains has caused severe flooding in homes, roads, and stations. Vehicles were stranded and officials warned people not to travel in hazardous conditions. In a tweet, the London Fire Brigade said that it has received more than 600 calls reporting flooding. The Environment Agency issued 2 flood warnings and a further 19 less severe flood alerts in the city. In the U.S. state of California, authorities are bracing for more blazes as smoke columns from raging wildfires could spawn lightning storms. The swarming Dixie Fire has already incinerated more than 190,000 acres in Northern California. Officials say the state's largest fire in Butte County is only 21% contained so far. The firefighters struggled to contain the blaze as it gained ground by joining with another fire nearby. Authorities have issued mandatory evacuation orders for the eastern shore of Lake Alamdar. Meanwhile, in Oregon, the Butte Lake fire razed over 408,000 acres and is 46% contained. More than 80 large active wildfires in 13 U.S. states have so far charred about 1.4 million acres. It's now time for a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. German Chancellor Angela Merkel has attended the annual opera Bayreuth Festival in the southern county. Angela Merkel was accompanied by her husband, Joachim Saar, on the red carpet for the event. The Bayreuth Festival, conceived by Richard Wagner, dates back to 1876 and stages his operas. Although Wagner died half a century before Adolf Hitler came to power, the Nazi dictator was his avid admirer. Wagner's work fascinates eager opera enthusiasts who often wait as long as 10 years for tickets to the opera festival. The annual opera frenzy is a highlight of the German cultural life. UNESCO has added Madrid's historic Paseo del Prado Boulevard and Retiro Park to its list of World Heritage Sites. The tree-lined Paseo del Prado is home to the Prado Museum. Meanwhile, Retiro Park is one of the city's most visited attractions. El Retiro was built for the personal use of King Philip in the 17th century. Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez celebrated the news on Twitter, saying the recognition enhances the city's historic, artistic, and cultural legacy. In the United States, the 38th annual New Jersey Lottery Festival of Ballooning has returned after a one-year hiatus due to the pandemic. More in this report. The crowd in Readington Township watched as over 100 colorful hot air balloons filled the sky on a clear, sunny day. Readington's calm winds were ideal for the flight as families enjoyed the festival.
I've lived here for 13 years in Hunterdon County in Flemington, New Jersey, and I've never had a balloon land in my backyard ever, and I'm so excited because we were watching them from our porch this morning, and then all of a sudden there was a balloon that was right over our house, and I was like, land! And they finally landed, and I couldn't be happier.
Nearly 100 different hot air balloons participated in the festival. The New Jersey Division of Travel and Tourism claims it is the largest summertime hot air balloon and music festival in North America. Shares in the Asia Pacific are trading mostly lower. Chinese tech and education stocks in Hong Kong plunged on regulatory pressure. Investors are also monitoring a bitter start to the fresh round of talks between China and the United States. Hong Kong's Hang Seng is leading the losses, tumbling 3.5%. Meanwhile, mainland Chinese stocks have dived over 2%. Seoul's Kospi also slipped nearly 1%. The ASX 200 in Australia is trading flat. However, Japan's Nikkei 225 has gained over 1%. It's now time to take a look at the weather updates from around the world. For the latest news updates, you can follow us on our social media at indus.news.